So I'm not gonna be spending too much time, and hopefully this webinar isn't actually that long, because it's for you guys as much as me. Hopefully it's not that long, simply because we've built a process just to sort of see what happens. We're not really using anything new. We are going to talk a little bit about some stuff you won't have seen, but nothing massively. And we've alluded to it. We're actually going to show you some stuff. But it's more of a process thing. So my usual agenda: why are we doing it, what are we doing, how, and more importantly, where could you use it? Those are the most kind of important things. And we are going to be a little bit commercial as ever, because again, if you can't sell it, then there's no point in us doing it, fun though it might be. So why are we doing it? Well, I just pick one of the various slides I use for this now. You know, the number of people working from home, changes in the market, reduction in print, hardware changes, all of those good things. And I will say, we are seeing some opportunity in this. It seems at the moment it's very difficult to find positives in any of this stuff, but you know, in the world around us, in fact, I'm getting more tempted to just close the door, hide behind the sofa, and never come out again. But there we are. So, you know, we could refresh all this, but I've generated a new slide, Ben. Hopefully you'll like this one. Lockdown.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Oops, I did it again. There we go. Lockdown 2.0. Because if we wanted any proof that the world was going to change, well, we got it today, in fact, didn't we? So here we go again. And it just proves that actually the world is definitely going to change. We're not going to be able to do the same things. We need to build different businesses, different models, all these kind of things. Because quite frankly, where we were before with purely paper process and those kind of things, we need to adjust them. Now, funny enough, I'm now fairly convinced that there is definitely a place for paper, but it's about shaping the opportunities and the deals a little bit further. Now, if any of you have sat through any of my WebExes, I'm going to have to pretend that the people on this call may have heard us waffling on about this stuff before, Ben, really, simply because we're building on, aren't we, all the things we've talked about in the past.
It's part of a series. It's an ever-growing thing of beauty, I like to call it.
Well, given that it's lockdown, I'm on a shed on my own, you know, trousers are optional. So thing of beauty, probably not, I will say. Having said that, we don't want everyone, you know, we can't cover everything we've covered before, because there'd be hours of waffle rather than just an hour of waffle, if you see what I mean. So guys, if we're talking about stuff that you don't know where we're coming from, stick up your hand and we'll tell you where we mentioned it, what it is, what the references were, or anything else that we can look at. But the general message all the way along through this has been the need to change the structure. And we started off at the beginning of lockdown 1.0 talking about the fact that there just simply wasn't any paper, and therefore there weren't any hardware deals. And now we're realizing that actually the deals are there, but you're looking for justification to move these things commercially. And also the differences in the structure, the difference in the choices of hardware, the requirement for process things to kind of hold things together. So commercially, there's an opportunity in reshaping existing deals. And we're trying to work on how you could do that. And the what, if you like, of doing that is us revisiting our price book, doing what we do best, go finding some tools, some software, and reshaping that and making sure the commercials are useful to you and the technology is useful to you to power new stations. That select piece, if you like. So again, these are a couple of slides that we used last time. You know, I'm looking at the list and I'm guessing you're primarily hardware sales guys. And to be fair, if we were to ask you how many hardware devices you had out there that weren't attached to a network or to a mail process or something along that, you know, the do you scan to mail or folder question is at least asked, I would imagine. I would imagine there's not a lot of them that aren't connected. You could probably count them on the fingers of one hand. You know, hopefully, because we all love a bit of it, there we go, a bit of PaperCut. Hopefully there's some PaperCut, some print management, some user management, some reporting. So you've already got your fingers in at kind of an infrastructure tool level. And we're going to be doing some content in the coming weeks about the things that we are bolting in around that. Now today, we're going to talk purely about, about document capture and process and stuff. And to be fair, if you are, one of the big shots out there, you quite possibly have already sold some ECM stuff. We obviously have the Square 9 one, quite like it, which is why we have it. But the odds are that's again fairly minimal in terms of where in terms of ratio of devices or two devices and so on. But we are realizing that there's new places to glue new stuff. So process, PaperCut touches on a bit of process with some kind of inbuilt or even off-box OCR. So they dipped their toe, but it didn't go that far. So there's opportunity in there. Again, the actual workflow and automation type stuff as well. There's a gap there, certainly becoming more complex as people need to work off of different device types, because organizations increasingly, certainly small to medium or low-end enterprises, or even complex environments, actually, things like healthcare, where you have a lot of contractors, you have a lot of off-book staff that you don't want to give IT to. And so there's a real opportunity in there. And when we sat back and looked at it, we took those categories and frankly, we kind of, saw the share of wallet, if I'm totally honest. Let's look at that. Those new categories are things that can free up margin or can offer new revenue opportunities or engagement in new customers, certainly different language, different places to look. But again, it might even help you create those PaperCut upgrades, renewals, generate some margin from that existing application set, or even from associated IT services or other things that are a bit tenuous, but they are there. So how? Today, we're talking really about how we start to draw our opportunities back to the bit where people recognize us from a product perspective, where they already perceive us. And we mentioned PaperCut. We like a bit of PaperCut. And for this, I'm going to treat print and PaperCut as kind of the foundation conversation, the reason that you have a legitimate reason to contact these customers, to talk to them, to be sympathetic about the changes in the world, and then to point out and say, hey, look, you've got print from us, you've got process from us in a sense. Those processes maybe aren't entirely fit for purpose. You maybe want to have a different conversation, but we have a very legitimate foundation and platform to grow into what you need it to do. And we're going to use PaperCut as a core component of that. In terms of what it can manage and where it can go. And I'm going to shamelessly talk about a couple of things that Selectech have added to their price book as well to make your life more interesting. So that's kind of the premise. I've taken a long way to get there, Ben, but that's it. We're going to talk about building on PaperCut and print for selling new toys. All right.
Like it.
Cool. I'm going to throw a quote in. I do like a quote, as you know, primarily because there's a lot of people out there cleverer than me. Some of them
you can't put your quotes on any form of social media because they're normally full of salty language.
That's true. They make good bumper stickers and t-shirts, and that is about it. I got into real trouble about the comment I made around Furbies last night, in my last night in the pub for the next however long. And I was reminded to not put my own quotes in anything today. So it's funny you should mention that. I bought this up. I've used it a lot. We've talked about this a lot. The thing is, if we look at the need out there for software, for processes to change the planet, from a work perspective, the issue is that certainly SaaS providers, structure providers, all of those good guys, they're very good at having you fill in a web form. But there's a lot of small businesses and a lot of personalities out there. Certainly, if you talk to our guys that are engaged, I think Mr. Gill and Mr. Lees and Mr. Jones are on this call. And over the last few weeks, they've been really engaged with end user organizations who have been struggling to vocalize what they need, struggling to explain what they need to do, because simply looking at a web page doesn't do it. So talking to those customers and saying, right, okay, what are you doing? Now, from an NPS perspective, when it comes to business process, we are the guys that deal with the piece of paper which goes into the in-tray and one copy goes down to the warehouse and so on. So these processes that are out there, and they are much more prevalent than even I still believe, to be honest. We are really good at sitting there and asking the questions about where it goes, and we have the financial tools to also, you know, create that as an easy process forward. So do have a think about this, you know, work backwards towards the technology. So, right, what goes where, which body needs to do what with what, and all of that good stuff. Okay, so I kind of put it in there, really work out what that sales process is. And it gives me a chance to work out what I'm going to do next, as well as a waffle about it, which is also useful. Shameless pitch. I am not going to show the whole video simply because, well, we changed it for one thing, but I want to, for the eagle-eyed amongst you, the technical guys, you will recognize the PaperCut MF interface, okay? And if you do recognize the PaperCut MF interface, you will recognize the scan actions or the scan button. And if I scroll this through, you will see that we have, you can watch this video. In fact, Mr. Jones will probably share a link with you to a much better, much more refined video. We have created an interface from the PaperCut embedded client to the GlobalCapture and Global Search products from Square 9. I'm not going to use them in the process that we're talking about today, but I want you to be aware of them, because at the end of this process, you would be able to round out any kind of document capture, any other kind of process by using the PaperCut MF product to imbibe documents back into the Square 9 Global Search tools. And if you're not familiar with them, or the Square 9 GlobalCapture tools, if you're not familiar, there's a raft now of content that we've created and things that we've done. Or, of course, we'll happily talk to you and give you a demonstration of it. And I'm going to scroll this through. You can see that we can actually enter information here. I'm doing this by clicking along rather than running the whole video. And it will deliver into a GlobalCapture interface or global search interface with the metadata and create an auditable trail for documents and so on. So we're about to jump off and go into the bit before this, but I wanted to put this in there at the outset. First piece of that glue is, are you using PaperCut for scanning? Have you got it? If you have, then how do I enforce document capture? How do I enforce process control? How do I enforce any of those things? Because simply knowing that someone scanned a piece of paper to an uncontrolled source and you don't know what it is and you don't know what the data is, well, that's not controlling anything. But being able to do that with PaperCut and GlobalCapture is a real upsell. And there is a lovely conversation as well to have about the upsell from OCR to paid OCR into a workflow tool. And from another thing that we will talk about at the end, SelectTech own this API tool that we're using, and that means that we can set the SRPs and we can give you a margin opportunity. So we're talking about it a lot. It's a shameless pitch. I apologize, but it will come clear. Now, this is going to be scary stuff, Ben. You know that thing, just as you go over the edge? Here we go. Because we're about to actually go into some demonstration-y type stuff. So we'll talk about the premise, but right now I feel a little bit like I'm going over the edge of the roller coaster. I'm slightly worried about whether this is going to work. So here we go. All right, I'm gonna end it out. I'm gonna get away from that, and I'm gonna try and find a virtual machine. There we go. The Unicorn Solutions guys are back. Ben, you'll be pleased to know this.
They have risen like a phoenix.
All right. So to explain what I'm doing and where I am, okay, I challenged myself to see whether I could take the simplest process that I could find, and from that generate a business automation using a bunch of different tools and functions that we have, and to demonstrate what a couple of them are doing. So I created a Word document because, you know, we could do this with forms, we could do it with all sorts of really clever type spaces, but I wanted to see what we could drive by simply pushing print on a Word document. Now, I will say I created this one longhand, but I do know that if you're better with Word than I have, you could have it that if you fill in this page, it populates, as you can see, all the other pages. This isn't a how to use Word tutorial. There's loads of those on YouTube. or the YouTube. Is it the YouTube? Is it?
I think it's just YouTube now. The cool kids say YouTube, not the YouTube.
No, it's like the internet. Yeah?
The internet, indeed.
Yeah, exactly. No, the YouTube. If you want to know how to make Word documents, go on the YouTube and you'll be fine. But in this case, you can see what I'm doing. I've got nothing more complicated. This isn't a WYSI document. There's nothing dynamic in it other than the data is being populated and a number of stuff. So if you were in the very lowest case, the least technically able organization, and you could create a Word document, you could do this. So I'm just going to push print. Now I worked out there's a quick access to print thing. I'm just going to click print, and startlingly, there's nothing to see. There you go. That's the whole demo. No, it's not. Because what we're actually doing is we're dropping this into a workflow. And that workflow is going to do a bunch of little processy bits. I've broken it down. Able to see that a bunch of documents have gone into process, and they are oh, it's telling me that my internet connection is unstable. I don't know quite why it's done that, but there we go. In any second now, what should be happening as I refresh this, there you go, you can see that the documents have been brought into process just by clicking the print, because I generated a document into a watch process. We're going to get a bit brave because I want you to be able to see that all I did was click print. Welcome to the shed, by the way. I do have the weirdest, messiest office. I didn't click anything else. I didn't click print on that document. I didn't do anything along those lines. I sent it directly to a place, and there the invoice page of that document has come out. And you will see now as I come into this that let's actually do this. And you'll notice, guys, that I am doing this on an iPad. So I'm going to punch this. I'm going to come into this, and you'll see here that what I had, let's refresh the view of my little Word document. So you are probably a bit confused about what's going on at this stage, which would be, you know, totally reasonable. There we go. I created a document that had an order confirmation in it. It had an invoice document in it. It had a picking list document in it and a shipping label. Now, obviously, for my little order processing thing to go ahead, first of all, I wanted to receive that from the customer. So I did, and you can see that I've got my iPad right here. And if I look at Clive, he was the guy who placed the order. See, there we go. And then what happened quite neatly was Clive got, let me move my iPad for just a minute. There we go. We said, thanks for your order. There it is. And I just did it again. You can see at 14:22, that was 2 minutes ago, saying thanks very much. And we sent him just the order confirmation page. Nothing grander than that. So we split that one out without doing anything else. We extracted the information that we needed, and we pushed go and sent that out to Clive. Then when we were doing this, we also decided it would be quite nice to strip that data. There we go. Let's open this. Let's open it in Excel this time. There we go. And as I scroll all the way along, you can see that I've got my dates. I have the order number, the customer number, the address, the value, and the account that actually ran to. So finance now has a list of what happened there, what went on, and how that appeared, and so on. And as soon as we worked out that that invoice was valid, we also sent him the invoice in a separate document. So you can see the timestamp, because everything's happening really quickly here, has been separated out. And he also now has his invoice, and he will receive thanks for the invoice, and you'll see it's a separate email. So the first step of our workflow was we took our document and we quite neatly processed an order confirmation, thanked him for that, extracted the values we needed from that, and sent that to the finance team to do whatever they want. But of course, the next process was the picking list, and we want to send that, there we go, into the warehouse, so someone in the warehouse can pick it up. My kids have been playing with my iPad again. I'm not sure what Sky Girls is. I'm just going to say this.
You say this every time, Damo. I'm pretty sure you got up to the maximum level in it. I know you have.
It's a win. There we go. Anyway, but check this out. Check this out. This is a bit we've never done before. Okay, so we're going to use a validation portal. Right, let's summarize what we did. All I did, the only thing I've done so far is I pushed go on a PDF. well, it's not a PDF, actually, it's a Word document, all right? And that Word document was then via a printer driver, and we're going to come back as to why that's important, sent my Word document with no changes, nothing, winging into the system. Let me just move that iPad a little minute so you can see, just to remind you. What we did was we separated the document down into a bunch of processes. We sent the customer some emails. We attached a few bits that we'd sorted out. We wrote the data off of the documents into a table, but that could be any kind of back-end system, anything else you might want. But then we decided it would be a super interesting thing for an organization to be able to have a view of what that data looked like. I'm a bit nervous to refresh this, but hopefully, there you go. You can see that, okay, we know that we've got documents here to pick. So I'm going to come into this and I'm going to, there we go, quite neatly. We're going to pull up and you can see here that I only have the picking list. This is lovely. So I can walk around my warehouse. In fact, I might do this very thing, pick up some stuff, make it sound heavy. There you go. And I'm going to say, right, I'm totally happy with that. That's really cool. And I'm going to say that order has been picked. And when I've done that, I'm going to walk over to my printer. Hopefully you can still see this. This genuinely is completely live, people. This is terrifying. All right. But in any kind of a moment, there it goes. There's the printer. All right. I will say these Lexmarks go fully to sleep, so apologies on the delay there. But we still haven't done anything other than a user interacting with a document to say, there we go. So the invoice came out of, and it could be out of an alternate printer. I've only got one printer, so that's it. And there's our shipping label, which is an old Avery template. I'm not using a label stock because I don't have, well, frankly, I haven't got any labels, so I don't need any. But you get the general gist of the idea, and the user's queue has moved itself away. So remotely, we were able to access that, get the picking list, move the document through a process, and close it all down, which is super cool. That's also happened. So really nice. Now, let's take a look at what also has happened there. We could have held that document if we want to. I might do that. We'll send that one back out. Actually, I'm going to fire it again just so we can move it through an alternate process. But as I come into here, let's just see what's going on. We were releasing the documents into the different places as they go. So as I go to bookmarks, any of you that are familiar with Foldr will know that this is us using a Windows client. There's my finance document that we saw, and that will be appended as we go along. But there's the invoice document. It's named after the invoice number. It's got the values in it and the date and the customer name. And I've also got the order confirmation sheet, which we put into there, as you can see, separate documents, and the picking list that we also picked up with the shipping label there so we can see it. So that's kind of cool. But let's just kind of make this happen again. I'm going to go really off piece now, Ben. We're going to do something.
I was going to say, mate, you were doing very well. This is where it all goes.
No, it's not.
Where it all falls down now.
It's completely not. All right. I'm telling you, this is going to be a thing. It's going to be. It's going to be
excited for you, dude.
How badly can this go? Let's take a look.
Can I just say that it's been ultimately very impressive so far, because not only have we had all those documents in certain places, they could be anywhere, couldn't they? So they could be.
They could be.
We're any place. The emails could be sent to any email addresses. The fact that you've got the documents coming out of any printer across the network, the fact that you've done all of this in one location doesn't mean that it's specifically for one location, right?
There we go. There's just the other one that we could print on as automatically. I don't know if you saw the email alerts pop up there. I push print on it one more time if you remember. Yeah. So the email again, thanks for your order, and it spat the invoice out on paper. Personally, I don't know that I print the invoice, but I wanted to demonstrate that we could do things multiple times. But what I will say is I would particularly like to be able to, I'm on an iPhone now, as you can see. I'm on a mobile device. I'm not on my network, and I'm going to sign into the wonderful Foldr client. And there we go, PaperCut to process. Do you like me monkey? I know it's a little bit of a random thing to say, but I was really impressed that Foldr have added animal.
I'm just glad you're not out in public saying that, Damien.
There was last night again, I mentioned. Anyway, so I am Frank. I am not a domain user. If you want to know about how we interact with non-domain users, you will see that I am there, and I am into finance, and I can take a look at my AP finance type bill. and I can move across the different lines and stuff, and I can see that on my mobile, all being uploaded live. I could jet back again and take a look at the invoices that are out there. You can see that it's added and appended one to the second one because I printed the same document again with the packing list and the order confirmations. That's now happening on my mobile. I can do all of that with no problems. Now, in this case, what I'm going to do is I am going to go back here and I'm going to pick up my iPad again because I'm now my warehouse guy, and I'm going to refresh my page, and you'll see that I have another document that, or sorry, another box to pick, and I'm going to tell it that I'm ready to do so. It's going to give me the picking list. And you know what, guys? This time I used all of the widgets last night. The whatnots have all sold out. So I'm going to say, do you know what, that? We're going to say we've got to hold that order. The document's going to disappear from my queue. My job is done. I will go and take a sit down. But you'll see here, if you're eagle-eyed, that we just had that order held and we know where it is. And if I actually go to there, okay, let's just copy that, go to Windows File Explorer, try this. Let's see whether this actually works. I didn't set it up as a link, which I should have done. There we go.
Ooh.
There's the picking list for the document that's actually held, and Frank can see that as well. Now, what's really important here, guys, is that we have done nothing other than click print, which is what people associate you guys with. And that's kind of important. This process is being driven. So let's think about what we're doing from a Word document. We are clicking print and we are extracting data to drop into a system. We were doing it into an Excel file or a CSV, but that could be a database, it could be a system, it could be a table, it could be anything that you want it to be. We were emailing a customer with a confirmation of their order. We were also, after the invoice data had been extracted, sending them a tax invoice if they requested it, which we did. We were then routing that through to a picker in a warehouse who was using an iPad. That was genuinely my iPad. You saw the cameras happening, and they were picking and approving the document, or approving the picking list to say it was complete, or putting it on hold. As you saw, we were also getting the documents on hold. It would be interesting actually just to check this, because I have one more thing here to kind of go with. And if I go picking list, so there you go. Held orders has suddenly appeared. I don't know if you can see that. And there's the document 1434 that was generated because my my warehouse picker held the document, or held the order. So I could see exactly where that is. Now, all of this occurred simply by pushing print. We didn't have to take ourselves away from that print infrastructure or do anything else with it. But this is a bit that I've talked about, but we've never actually shown anyone, and it is this. So we do talk about capturing scans, capturing prints, capturing other things through PaperCut. The reality is there's no reason as an infrastructure tool, this couldn't also be generating the reports, generating the BI that you need, and also managing costs and process. And again, validations around things that are not print. And in this case, we're particularly interested in documents that are not and haven't gone through. So you'll see that GlobalCapture, which is a capture tool, it's the one that's driving it through, has divided these things. So we were actually, yeah, we could take a look at all of the printers, which we'll do in a minute to prove it. But if I look at GlobalCapture admin, we have this tracking the jobs that go through the various different workflows. So you'll see that the user attributed to the administration, she's there from a user, is charged the right workflow. So the order confirmations are an administration piece. If I roll over, you'll see that it's using the order number that was dynamically created, telling me the type of document that went through the process. So now I can refresh this. You'll notice that these order confirmations, which never get printed by the workflow, have a zero cost. However, the workflow that did print a page has in fact had a cost attributed to it by PaperCut. So that in itself becomes pretty powerful, I think. If I come back into printers, you'll see that the same workflow, we weren't printing to a different device, just a different line in in the workflow. And if I go to the job log, you'll see that it's printed the picking list, it's listing them as color or not. Again, it's using, can you see that one? That one was processed, this one was held. So I know exactly where it was and if it was printed or not, and whether it was a held job or what that's gone through. This tracking of workflows within PaperCut allows us to, rather than just say, do you want to track users scanning documents? I'm using it today for, frankly, a fairly tenuous logistics example. But if we think about legal environments that are capturing correspondence, if we think about manufacturing environments, if we think about healthcare environments, being able to track the usage of scan into a validated workflow is a very, very different story than simply knowing that Bob dumped 500 pieces of paper through a copier, which doesn't actually tell you anything. From your perspective, from a maintenance and service, this actually allows you to open conversations about charging differently for validated scans, document processes that have validation portals, that have data profiling, so we can guarantee that file names are correct. We can guarantee where jobs have landed from their saved values and stuff within the workflow. So there is no risk around the file save as or email to me, drag drop, we told two friends type processes that we've discussed massively in the past. So we can now track this as well using the PaperCut MF client that we have, as well as tracking the inbound scans into workflows, which can then be reflected in lists such as this. And if I take a look at this by account, you can see that I can come into here and I can look at the balances based on the job log. So I can see exactly which jobs they've pulled by account. I can do it by user as well. And this is not always print. This is actually workflow use. So these jobs that are being tracked, they never left Word. They weren't ever a print. They were something that would never have been able to be tracked by any other type of process. And that is all now being managed and used within PaperCut. And there's another real benefit for us doing that as well that we will touch on in a moment. Now, if you really wanted to grow this out, I just want to throw one last piece out there for this is, of course, if you wanted to, I'm not going to use the grower and shower phrase. I'm not going to do that, Ben, not this time. But I am going to say that all of those workflow things were also picking up, and I decided just because I could to throw them into global search as well, because I could power a full ECM tool, be that cloud-based or premise. If I refresh this, I should be able to see, obviously, we've got lots of different documents that we've pulled through because we ran the process a couple of different times. But you can see the invoices that have come through with the very simple data from this demo perspective. I can look at the picking list documents that have come through in terms of ones that were held, ones that were released as well. There are 3. Of course, the order confirmations for ones that went out that were not held, and the whole combination of all of the documents. Now, I don't want to be big-headed, but I created this archive and linked it up to that GlobalCapture workflow, and I was doing it about 5 minutes before this actually started. It took 10 minutes end to end. Now, obviously, installing global search is a slightly different kettle of fish, but creating the archive, linking it up to the workflow, and now being able to search entirely across this thing. So I'm just going to say, well, do you know what? I only want to see, I don't know. I could pick something. But let's just do the 1, 2, 3, 4 thing, which is, of course, going to return all my documents. But I can now browse absolutely everything and anything that I might want to do by bolting it into an ECM. What's more, the workflow that we used was created in about an hour and was fairly easy to do. And more importantly, I could pick that up and I could port it and move it into a different location.